did 30 days of Joe Dispenza meditations just to see if it would have any impact on my life, whether it would create some kind of outward miracles, synchronicities, whether it would help me manifest faster, and also whether it would make me feel better, feel more joyful, feel more empowered on a daily basis. I wanted to see whether being more consistent with meditation would actually make a difference. I'd done some of Joe's meditations before, maybe 3-4 days in a row, even up to a week, and then I would just lose interest or lose motivation and decide I didn't need them anymore, and then I would drop it, and then maybe a few weeks later I'd do it once, and then I'd forget about it again. And I was kind of curious, based on some other people's experiences, whether it would actually make a huge difference if I continued for a period of extended time. In this video, I want to share with you the results I saw, but broken down by week, and to show you what I'm feeling moving forward and what impact doing these meditations on a daily basis had for me, and therefore might have for you too. So in the first week, I decided to experiment with some of Joe's meditations on attracting miracles. And these morning and evening meditations often had half the meditation was about listening to affirmations and then repeating themselves into your head in order to try and train your subconscious to believe in these positive thoughts. And so I found that really, really nice, actually. It was nice having these kind of positive thoughts being deeply implanted into my subconscious. And it just felt very relaxing to kind of repeat them in my head after Joe would say them. So what was interesting in that first week is I could feel my brain actually changing. I could feel things rewiring and moving around. And I didn't really feel that different emotionally, or I didn't notice huge miracles come into my life, but I could definitely feel like something was going on. What was interesting is that it kind of brought up all the negative beliefs I was holding. Because I was listening to positive affirmations, my brain would then come up with reasons why I didn't believe those things. So I noticed I had some impatience and some doubt coming up. So for example, as I said, I was listening to meditations about manifesting miracles and seeing miracles unfold. And I started thinking things like, oh, well, I work from home. I don't interact with a lot of people out there in real life. How can I attract more miracles? Because I made the assumption that I needed to be kind of on the streets, moving around, or in a workplace, interacting with people. And then I would notice people acting really differently towards me or offering me opportunities. So my brain was already coming up with limiting ideas about how these miracles would come about. And what was interesting about that is that I didn't even realize I had those limiting beliefs, but I was kind of matching my lifestyle, which I spend a lot of time traveling, but when I'm at home, I'm quite at home working by myself. And so I had already decided in my head that because I'm not in a big city with lots of people, I'm not in a workplace, that I would reduce my chance of manifesting miracles. So that was interesting for me to note. So I did some journaling in that first week, just observing what was coming up. And I found that really helpful to understand more about what limiting beliefs were sort of hidden, lurking in my subconscious. Another thing that came up in the first week was my curiosity about whether I could influence my husband. So I was wondering, if I was doing the daily meditations and he wasn't, would he still have some positive impact? Because I wanted to share that kind of higher vibration with him, and I wanted him to be able to manifest the things that he wanted. So I was really curious. So that question sort of stayed in my mind, and I'll tell you more about that later on, about whether that happened or not. So by the end of week 1, I wasn't noticing any major things happening. I had a bit of disappointment that nothing, a huge opportunity hadn't come my way. I think there was part of me that was expecting something dramatic to happen to convince myself it was worth doing this 30 days and worth the idea of meditating every day, that I needed something very obvious to happen. So I was a little bit disappointed. But by the end of the week, some very kind of small synchronicities were happening. So for example, I'm writing a book, and the opening chapter of the book has been a problem for me. I've never really known what the opening chapter should be. I had conversation with my husband. We came up with an idea that seemed a little bit out of left field, but felt right. And then, in a TV show we're watching and another YouTube video I was watching, a symbol that represented that idea kept getting repeated. And so I was thinking, wow, this feels like a synchronicity, that I'm on the right path with opening the chapter in the book in this new way. So week 2, things started to speed up a bit. What I noticed is that listening to these positive affirmations, I had less resistance. I wasn't coming up with as many negative kind of arguments to say, no, that can't happen, I can't create that. So I was feeling more emotionally accepting of those positive ideas. So that started to flow into my emotional state. So I started feeling a bit more positive, and that felt really nice. We had an interesting manifestation. So my husband found a free massage table being offered by someone in our local community, and we've wanted a massage table for years. And so that was really nice. And the person even offered to drop it off because our car, it didn't fit the massage table. So it even got dropped off at our driveway. So that was a cool little okay, maybe things are starting to change on the outer world. Something really nice I noticed in week 2 was my sleep started improving. And I really enjoyed those night meditations. So I would do it at about 10 o'clock just before I'd like to go to bed about 10:30. And I found that if I did it right before I went to bed, I started sleeping better, sleeping deeper and not waking up so much at night. So that was a really nice side effect that I hadn't anticipated. So week 3 was really interesting. I was starting to see some more synchronicities happening in my world. So I parked my car right in front of a tree, went off to a cafe with friends, came back, and I noticed there were about 1,000, maybe thousands of ladybugs lying on that tree in amongst the bark. And for me, ladybugs have always been an omen of good luck, and I've never seen, in my whole life, I've never seen that many ladybugs. So I took that as a really good sign. The other cool thing that felt like a miracle to me was that we manifested a place to stay over Christmas. So I was traveling to visit my family, didn't have anywhere to stay, and was thinking might have to find a hotel, but there wasn't really anything that looked that great. And then we just mentioned it to someone, a friend, and they offered we could stay at their new Airbnb in exchange for giving them a review. So that really manifested very quickly and effortlessly, and was really, really perfect timing. The other thing that happened in week 3 was some kind of deep, long-standing emotional issues came up. And I took that as a good sign that they were coming up to be healed, because they resolved fairly quickly. And it felt like a really positive, like I had to feel some of those difficult emotions in order to let them go. So that was really interesting to see that I was getting like little triggers of things, but they would come up quite intensely, but I was able to feel them and let them go a lot quicker than usual. And they didn't hang around or morph into negative thoughts, which is what they've done in the past, where they sort of cycle into like a repeating pattern of ruminating negativity. So I was really pleased about that. And overall, by the end of week 3, I was just starting to feel like more positive, more trusting, less scarce around how things were going to unfold. For example, that accommodation thing had in the past triggered some scarcity about where are we going to stay, some stress about that. And that had just unfolded so smoothly. But what was interesting is before that opportunity came along, I was just a lot more relaxed about how that whole situation might happen. So week 4 was even more interesting. I noticed my emotional state was quite altered from before when I started the challenge. And I felt like I was almost starting to float slightly above negative thoughts, problems, worrying about situations. So things were still happening as life does, and all the little ups and downs, but I was feeling quite neutral, like I wasn't being knocked about emotionally so much by them, and things would come up, then they'd be resolved, or I would feel them and I'd let them go. And it just felt a lot more smooth, and it meant that I could have a trigger and then also pop back up into feeling happy and not linger on negative thoughts. So that was a really nice feeling. So my takeaways, what did I learn from this 30-day challenge? One is that consistency, as always, it's obvious, but it's really important. And while it's okay to skip a day, making it a daily habit makes it easier to integrate and make sure that you're doing it enough to have the effect that you want. I also realized there is sometimes a lag on raising your vibration, feeling better, and manifesting different outcomes in your life. And so it made me realize how important it is to focus on the feeling, like if you're feeling joy, if you're feeling happier, if you're feeling freer, more at peace, that is the most important thing. And then just trust that the external world is going to mirror those changes to you. And that might happen slowly at first, and then it might speed up. So on that same note, vibration is the key to everything. It's a key to feeling good. It's a key to attracting good things. It's a key to feeling peaceful, even when things aren't happening exactly the way you want. So overall, I was able to manifest in that 30 days a new massage table. My husband got some new gym equipment that we've been wanting for ages that we thought was going to be really expensive, but someone ended up getting rid of it for a really cheap price. We manifested a lot of social invitations, being invited to parties and group gatherings more than normal, so that was really nice. And we manifested that accommodation. So what had always been a stressful point just really happened very quickly and easily, so that was amazing. We even managed to manifest something that we changed our mind on. We committed to buying a couch off someone, and we were starting to feel like we didn't actually want it anymore, and that we weren't really going to be able to get it to our house, and maybe it wasn't the right couch for us. And what happened is that person called us out of the blue and actually said they'd changed their mind and they wanted to keep it. And it was one of those moments that you can actually de-manifest something that you maybe shouldn't have manifested in the first place. So in answer to that question I had in week 1 about could I influence my husband's vibration, what was really interesting, we had a bit of a discussion about it towards the end of the challenge, and he noticed that my vibration had raised quite significantly, and that was having a really uplifting effect on him. So that when him and I were spending time together, he did feel a lot more positive, and that seemed to be really helping him. So in reflection, I realized it's not that you're changing anyone else, but if you're raising your vibration and you're feeling more positive, you are going to naturally affect the people around you. So that was a really pleasant kind of side effect, because I wasn't really confident that that was going to happen. Yeah, so I've decided that I will continue with these daily meditations. I really like the affirmation-based meditations. I like doing the morning ones and the evening ones. And if I forget the morning one, I sometimes try and sneak it in the afternoon. But as long as I do one a day and one most days, then I'm really noticing a significant impact on my daily feeling.